Bienvenidos, les informamos Marilis Llanos, reportera principal de política para Telemundo 51 y presentadora del programa semanal Enfoque Político.
And Jackie Nesprall, main anchor for NBC6 News in South Florida and host of the weekly political show Impact.
Le damos la bienvenida a este debate con los dos aspirantes a la nominación demócrata.
Both aspiring to the democracy.
For this bilingual
Florida.
debate, Telemundo 51 and NBC6 are joined by our Florida Telemundo partner stations in West Palm Beach, Orlando, Tampa, Fort Myers, and Naples.
Es un gran honor darles la
It is
bienvenida a
a big
nuestros
honor to
estudios
welcome to
aquí
our
en Miramar,
studios
donde
here in
toma
Miramar,
lugar el debate.
where the debate
We
is
welcome to
taking
our
place.
studios Charlie Crist, Congressional Representative for District 13 in the Tampa-St. Petersburg area of Florida, and Nicole Nikki Fried, Agriculture Commissioner for Florida.
Charlie Crist grew up in St. Petersburg, where he currently resides. He was first elected to the Florida Senate in 1992 as a registered Republican. Crist served as Education Commissioner and Florida Attorney General before being elected governor from 2007 to 2011. Crist registered as a Democrat in 2012. Since 2017, Crist has represented Florida's 13th district in Congress. He has emphasized his dedication to being the voice of the people. Born and raised in Miami, Nikki Fried graduated with a law degree from the University of Florida in 2003. She has practiced various forms of law, including foreclosure defense, corporate, and also as a public defender. In 2017, Fried formed her own law firm, advocating for at-risk children and access to medical marijuana. She was elected in 2018 as Florida's 12th Commissioner of Agriculture. Fried describes herself as a passionate activist.
Ahora que presentamos a los candidatos, aquí las reglas del debate.
Now we will present the candidates and hear the
The
rules of the
candidates
debate.
did not have prior access to the questions, and the questions are the same for both. The candidates will each have 90 seconds to respond to each question. The candidate answering the question first will have 30 seconds for rebuttal. At the end of the debate, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks.
El orden en que cada candidato
The order in
responda a
which
las
each
preguntas
candidate will
y
respond to
exponga
the
sus
question and
argumentos
expose their
ha
final
sido
arguments
aprobado
has
por
been
sorteo
determined by a poll
The
that
winner
was
of the random
done
drawing
before the
was
debate.
Commissioner Fried. So, Commissioner, I begin with you with a topic that is affecting all of us, and that, of course, is the economy and inflation, which in the past year has hit Floridians very hard in their wallets. Gas prices, groceries, and more are affecting us on our everyday life. The year-to-year inflation rate is 9%. That we haven't seen in 40 years. What specific plans do you propose to help Floridians most affected by inflation?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you to Ms. Nesprall, Ms. Llanos, Telemundo, and NBC for hosting tonight, and of course, the viewers. And before I answer your question, I want to take an opportunity to introduce myself to the viewers, because unfortunately, we've only had, or going to only have, one debate. I was born here in Miami. My mom was a teacher. My dad, well, he's a Republican. Don't worry, we pray a lot for him. But the things that they taught me was to always stand up for what I believed in, always stand up for justice, always making sure that I followed my heart, followed my passion. That's why after this debate, you will see that we only have one choice. The candidate who has been pro-life her whole entire life, the candidate who's never taken a single dollar from the NRA, someone who has won statewide. Now look, Charlie and I both want to make Ron DeSantis a one-term governor, but I'm the only one who can make that happen. We have been hearing these stories all across the state of Florida. The people can't afford their rent. They can't afford their mortgages, can't afford their food. They're being kicked out of their homes. On day one, I'm declaring a housing emergency because exactly what it is. That way it gives me the opportunity to allow our state attorneys, our attorney general, to start going after our predatory landlords, because that's what it is. It is greed, pure greed. Also, I was the one who asked the governor to issue a state of emergency on gas, because we have to be doing everything possible to help the Floridians here in the state of Florida.
Congressman Crist?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank Telemundo. I want to thank NBC for sponsoring this debate. It's an opportunity for viewers across Florida to get to see both of us. I just noted that my opponent said she's been pro-life her whole life. Sometimes that happens, Nikki, and I know that's not the case, and I hope you know that's not the case with me. But to get to your question about affordability, housing is the most critical issue we're facing in the economy. And what we need to do is not what Governor DeSantis has done. We need to make sure that we fully fund the Sadowski Fund at the state budget level, hundreds of millions of dollars that can be used for Floridians to be able to put a roof over their head. And it isn't just for buying a home, it's also for renting an apartment. This issue is so critical. I got to share with you personally. I, as a member of Congress, had an apartment in Washington. It was cheaper than the one-bedroom apartment I had in St. Petersburg, Florida, my home, just to illustrate how difficult this is. But number two, we ought to be working with our federal friends. Marcia Fudge, one of my former colleagues in the Congress, is now Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. She can help us. I'll work with the Biden administration instead of Governor DeSantis, who beats on them every day. Cooperation, working together is very important for your benefit. And then finally, at the local level in housing. Ken Welch is my new mayor in St. Petersburg, our first African-American mayor, and I'm very proud of that fact. He's already offered about $70 million to help. The gas tax should have been cut months ago. I told Governor DeSantis to do it last November. He didn't. He politically, ridiculously, is putting off any reduction in that until October, right before the election.
We're going to have
you
to
deserve
leave it there.
better than that.
We're going to have to leave it there. Marilis?
And I have 30 seconds.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Charlie, for actually correcting. I was talking about you being pro-life your entire life, including still today.
Well, you said you.
I have been pro-choice my entire life, and I'm so glad that you brought up the Affordable Trust Fund. When you were actually governor, you gutted the Sadowski Fund, the Affordable Trust Fund, in a tune of over $534 million. You wonder why we have a housing problem today? It's because not only you, but also Rick and Ron and Jeb all did the same thing. We have a housing problem today because of your failed leadership.
May I respond? May I respond?
Only one
No?
rebuttal.
Okay.
A series of companies that insure the properties has abandoned the state of Florida, declaring bankruptcy. They had canceled coverages and they had canceled renewals of the policies to millions of owners. There was a special session that was created in Tallahassee that was created by Governor Ron DeSantis, and the problem was not resolved there. What are you proposing in concrete to be able to face this crisis?
Thank you. Let me first address what Nikki said. She talked about the Sadowski Fund. I was governor during the Great Recession. We had to make hard choices. I made them, and we saved 20,000 teachers their jobs. I'm very proud of that fact. Being governor is a big job, and it takes people who are ready to make big decisions. I've done it. I'll do it again. Let me talk about property insurance. When I was governor before, I called a special session on property insurance that actually helped consumers. We reduced rates by 10%. What has DeSantis done? Zero. He called a special session. He didn't do anything. He actually, with his Republican colleagues in the House and Senate, made it more difficult for Florida consumers to be able to get what insurance companies are supposed to pay them anyway. He is not on the side of the people. He's running for president of the United States. He cares only about his future and more about the White House than your house. That's why we need a change. That's why on November the 8th, I hope that we get a Democrat elected that serves as your governor. And we need that because we need to have somebody who cares about people. I always have, and I always will.
Commissioner?
You know, as I've traveled the entire state, I don't have to be telling you this. You know that you can't afford your property insurance. You're seeing insurance policies being dropped, all of our companies going out of business. But unfortunately, the Republican Party has done nothing to help you. They've waited time and time again. So what I would do is, first and foremost, we have to put together a committee that looks at all of the concrete issues that can be changed, making sure that we're getting rid of frivolous lawsuits, make sure that we're taking care of fraud inside of our system, because that happens every single day. That is increasing our premiums. Then to increase the power of the insurance insurance consumer advocate. That is the individual who's supposed to be there for you, not the insurance companies, and to make sure that we are protecting the people. Now, Charlie was governor when at a time when we saw an increase of amount of cases that went into citizens. You know why? Because Charlie manipulated the market. He made sure that the insurance companies, that he chose the trial bar over the insurance companies, not over the people. By manipulating the market, he made sure that we have a crisis today. The policies that he put into place when he was governor is why we have an insurance problem here today. And Charlie, you were absolutely right. There was a recession during that time. But instead of going after corporations and closing loopholes during a time, you took away money that should have gone to affordable housing. Instead, you made sure that people are suffering today because of decisions you made as governor.
May I respond? Gracias. Thank you very much.
Congressman, please.
Yes, when I was governor, we had a great recession. I don't know of anybody who's dealt with something like that as governor of Florida in modern times at all, but I did it. And as I said, we saved 20,000 school teachers their jobs. We saved law enforcement jobs all over the state. We made sure we had firefighters that were still on the watch because I had the courage to work with President Obama and make sure we did what was right for the people of Florida.
The next question involves something you've already addressed, pro-life versus pro-choice. So let's talk about abortion. With the U.S. Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, abortion rights are now up to the states to decide. You both have voiced opposition to the state's new law banning abortions at 15 weeks and after. The previous state law banned abortions at the age of viability, roughly 24 weeks. What limits to abortion access, if any, do you support in a post-Roe Florida? Commissioner.
Thank you for this very important question, because this question is the greatest difference between myself, Charlie, and Ron. I have been pro-choice my entire life. I have made sure that I've stood on the side of women. Charlie cannot say the same thing. He has been pro-life his entire life, including today, including that when he had the chance when he was governor, he appointed the most radical extremists into the Supreme Court. So you want to know why our right to privacy is going to be overturned here in the state of Florida? It's because of decisions that Charlie made when he was governor. I would never let that happen. I will make sure that on day one we are declaring a state of emergency that allows me to make sure that money was not coming down for our state attorneys to prosecute doctors or women. We have to fight now. We have to make sure that our rights are being protected. And Charlie, when you campaigned for governor and when you campaigned for most of your career, you were pushing for amendments and supportive legislation that would have been an outright ban on abortions. That is unacceptable in a fight today. This is your legacy. When women die here in the state of Florida, that is on you, and you will have to live with that every single day. I will make sure that we continue to push for constitutional amendments to expand that right to privacy that we are going to lose, you and me, because of Charlie's decisions when he was governor.
Congressman.
Nikki, you know that's just not true. And you shouldn't say those kind of things because you're trying to muddy it up. And let's understand what's going on here. You're losing this campaign. It's time for desperation. And now it's on full display all over the state of Florida. And I'm sorry to see that. But let me talk about what I believe. I have been pro-choice. Every action that I have taken as an elected official has been pro-choice. Back to when I was a state senator, I killed an anti-abortion bill in committee when I voted no, and it was a 3-3 tie vote. Killing it in committee never went to the floor of the Senate. As your governor, Charlie Crist vetoed an anti-abortion bill that was sent to me by the Republican legislature. I've done it before, I'll do it again. And as a member of Congress, I have a 100% rating by Planned Parenthood and NARAL. And that's why people like Alex Sink have endorsed my campaign. Anna Escamani in Central Florida has endorsed my campaign. Barbara Dravecki, the former president of Planned Parenthood of Florida, has endorsed my campaign. Nikki, they're not wrong. They're right. You're wrong. I'm right for women. I'm right for pro-choice. I've always done it. I always will. Thank you.
Would you have any limits to abortion access?
You know, the question really isn't what limits. The question is, why do Republicans like Ron DeSantis not honor and respect a woman's right to choose? That's the issue we're dealing with. Let's back up and understand what's at stake here. A woman's right to choose is at stake. I'm for it. I'll fight for it.
We'll leave it there. Commissioner.
You know, Charlie, I'm definitely not going to let you rewrite history. That is not accurate. You know, I need the people to understand he did veto a piece of legislation after he left the Republican Party, not because he saw the light, but because he saw the polls. And he vetoed that legislation to take away votes, what would have been our first black U.S. senator here in the state of Florida. We as women cannot have a chance to have a Brett Kavanaugh in the governor's office.
Continuamos, congresista.
Let's continue, the congressman. Establishing
May I
the
respond to that briefly?
precedent.
There's one rebuttal, so we cannot.
I cannot.
Your time, Mr. Chris. Establishing the presence, the governor, Ron DeSantis, signed the law of the rights of parents in education. It's a law that prohibits the discussion about the identity and sexual orientation in the classrooms up to third grade. They call this law Don't Say Gay. How would you protect the groups LGBT that they feel vulnerable and in danger?
This is just another example of Governor Ron DeSantis picking on groups to try to divide our state, tear it apart, and further his ascension to the Republican nomination for president in 2024. What would I do? I'd repeal the Don't Say Gay bill. It is punishing on LGBTQ kids and gets them chastised in school. I was told by a guidance counselor in Broward County that the incidence of Suicide Watch students has gone through the roof lately as a result of this legislation. It's awful. It cannot stand. We have to have a governor who will try to bring us together again instead of divide Florida like DeSantis has torn Florida apart. We need a governor who wants to care about the people of our state, not the people in Iowa or New Hampshire who are going to be voting in 2024 for the Republican nominee for president. That's what you deserve. That's what we ought to be focused on. That's why I'm running for governor of Florida, is to fight for you, to fight for women, to fight for students, to fight for our teachers, to fight for our environment.
Commissioner?
I tell this story very often, but when I was in high school, my stepbrother came out to me. He didn't know who else to turn to. Luckily, I was there. I can't imagine the children today being in an environment where they don't feel accepted, where they don't feel loved. They have no one to turn to. This piece of legislation was for one purpose and one purpose only: to divide our state, to create hate. And the end result of this, because I talk to students, I talk to parents, I talk to teachers everywhere. You know, right now, our teachers, some of them that may be in same-sex marriages, can't even bring a picture of their spouse into the classroom. What happens to that little boy who can't draw a picture of their two moms? That is the result of this asinine piece of legislation that needs to be reversed. But also, we need somebody who we can trust to get it done. Charlie, for most of his career, campaigned on traditional marriage, that he went and made sure that we had a constitutional amendment that didn't protect same-sex marriage or same-sex adoptions. That is what we're dealing with today. So many things are on the line. We need to make sure that we have a true Democrat, somebody who's going to not only be able to beat Ron DeSantis, that I have been doing for 4.5 years, and I will continue to do it once after we get through this primary and we go head-to-head to Ron DeSantis.
Can you respond?
Yes,
you can
I
respond,
can.
Mr.
Thank
Congressman.
you very much. You know, you want a Democrat you can trust, and you deserve one, and you can trust Charlie Crist. Listen, I was in the Republican Party, and then the Tea Party rose, and it's only metastasized since. I have common sense. I have values that I live by: trust, honor, decency, kindness. Nikki talks about the fact that she doesn't think I've been such a great Democrat. Well, Nikki, it was only 4 years ago that you decided to support Ashley Moody, the Republican nominee for Attorney General of Florida, gave her a check for $2,000 that helped defeat Sean Shaw, and now it's that Attorney General of Florida that you supported who's trying to make sure that women don't get a choice by going to the Supreme Court. You want somebody you can trust? It's me.
We're going to have to leave it there. The next question surrounds, we've been witnessing the sentencing phase of the Parkland shooter, which happened here in South Florida. Gun reform laws have proven to be difficult to get through the legislature. In the wake of the Parkland school shooting, Florida passed some laws hoping to prevent a similar tragedy. Of course, we're talking about the red flag laws and raising the age to 21 to purchase most firearms. That went into place. So what else, if anything, do you think needs to be passed and can be passed here in the state of Florida? You know, when I ran in 2018, I made a promise to you. I made a promise that when I was elected Commissioner of Agriculture, not only would I kick the NRA out of my office, not take money from them or prop up their endorsement, but that's exactly what I did. I came in on day one, made sure that everybody had thorough and complete background checks, made sure that I looked for loopholes inside of my administration,
And then I stood side by side with the Parkland families, with legislators, pushing for initiatives such as universal background checks on ammunition, making sure that we made illegal gun shows, making sure the loophole was closed, also making sure that we got rid of the ghost guns in our state. There's so much more that we can do. It's why I too have bracelets, Charlie. Mine are from Bullets for Life that remind me every single day who I fight for and why I fight. So I would support making sure not only are we passing, making sure no ghost guns, making sure that we create new safety measures and mechanisms for safe storage of our guns, and without a doubt, we must get those assault weapons off our streets. Every single one of these mass shootings that we have seen is because of those assault weapons. I am somebody who has been in this trench. I have been here, I have been fighting on these issues. I am not somebody who, again, takes money from the NRA, has gotten an A rating for most of his career. I kicked the NRA out of my office. That is what I will continue to do as your next governor.
Congressman.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Nikki talks about banning assault weapons. She had to be dragged kicking and screaming to sign a ban on assault weapons a little over a week ago. And she says he's been there the whole time. That's not true. What I have done is called for the banning of assault weapons for a very long time. And in addition to that, make sure that we have background checks that actually check backgrounds. And it's good that we have red flag laws in Florida, but we need them nationwide. That's why I'm sponsoring legislation in the Congress today to do just that. I mean, if you have some incident that occurs in Savannah, Georgia, because they don't have a red flag law or what have you, and then they come into Jacksonville, that's why we need uniformity and to make it better. And NRA, I have an F from the NRA, and I'm proud of it. As a member of the United States Congress for 6 years now, representing Tampa Bay in a district that had not been held by a Democrat since 1955 until I ran. You want somebody who can win in November? It's Charlie Crist. Common sense on guns, doing what's right for women, protecting your right to choose. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, your response?
Charlie, it took you 30 years to get here. You know, I decided to not want to put my fingerprints on pledges in general. But when my friend David Hogg called me and said, Nikki, this is important to me, I signed it. Not because it took me 40 years to get to this position, but I don't believe in signing pledges. But when David called and said this is important, I made sure that it was done. I have always been here. That can never be disputed.
Congressman, the process had just started to sentence the author of the massacre in the Parkland school that left 17 people dead. Are you in favor of sentence in perpetual sentence or death sentence?
Well, this is a horrible crime that occurred in Parkland. And those lives that have been lost, it's unconscionable that that would occur. What we need to do, and what only I have done on this stage, is sign death sentences. Hardest thing to do as governor, in my opinion. But if ever there was a case where that is warranted, it is this case. It is such a heinous crime, so cruel, so inhumane, it is absolutely unconscionable, and you have to have consequences when you have serious crime like this. This is a time, this is a moment for that. He should get the death penalty for sure.
Commissioner?
I have spent a lot of time with the Parkland parents, with the families, with the kids. I was from Broward at the time, and I saw their grief. This is not an easy decision for a judge, for a jury to make. As a past public defender, I was in the public defender's office for 3.5 years. I saw how many times we got things wrong, and how many times that we had to go back and make corrections through trials. The death penalty is one of those circumstances that there has to be no disputable evidence that somebody has either been actually confessed or that, again, that there is no disputable evidence. Now, I actually talked to my friend Fred Guttenberg, and I asked him, what do you want? What do you want to see happen here? You know, originally he told me that he wanted to see this guy rot in jail for the rest of his life. But he's changed. And so I have to listen to what the parents want, the people that are grieving today, what they're going through. And at the end of it, he says, Nikki, I want this guy gone. And so, for my friend, Fred, and all the other Parkland families out there, I stand united with you. And I stand united and hope that the judge and the jury do the right thing and put this guy to death.
Mr. Congressman, do you have anything to explain about it or something to add to this question?
No, I really don't. Obviously we feel the same way on this issue, and I respect that.
And so I will welcome at this time our colleague, Giselle Tejeda. She is a host from the Orlando station representing Central Florida. Go ahead, Giselle. Thank you very much. My first question will be directed to you, Ms. Commissioner. We talk about the subject briefly, but in the beginning of the debate, but I would like to talk more about it. In Florida, there's less properties available to be rented, and the salaries are very low for the rent. This is a problem that is getting worse every time in the state, and specifically in the Central Florida. How will you think you will be able to alleviate this crisis?
Well, thank you for that question, because you're absolutely correct. We're seeing all over the state of Florida, rent increasing 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% in some places. I had the opportunity to talk to a woman by the name of Miss Johnson up in Tallahassee, single mom, 3 children. And the story that she told me was that she was seeing rent increasing by almost 100% and given no notice. And I asked her what she's going to do. She said, I have no choice but to leave. I'm hearing those stories all over our state from our hardworking Floridians. Some of them have to work 2 jobs in order to make ends meet. People are going to have to leave our state. The Republicans for decades have been bringing more and more people into our state with no plan of action. That's why, again, on day 1, I'm going to be declaring a housing emergency. Because if you cannot put a roof over your head, if you can't make sure that your families are taken care of, then we're seeing democracy, that American dream, slip through our fingers. We also need to make sure that we are looking at other ways to work with our local governments, to create local plans, to build more affordable homes. Again, the Sadowski Affordable Trust Fund has been gutted at a tune of $2.4 billion. Can you imagine how many more homes could have been built during that time? That is a promise to make sure that more money is going back into our Affordable Trust Fund to be expanding the amount of homes that are being built here in the state of Florida.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Congressman?
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here and representing Central Florida. This is one of the most important issues facing our state, and the reason is that the current Governor DeSantis doesn't care. He really wants to tear Florida apart, attacking LGBTQ, black Floridians, taking away congressional districts that are minority represented, the one from Al Lawson up in North Florida, Val Demings in Central Florida. It's unconscionable. We need a governor laser focused on doing what's right for the people, making sure that we have housing funds available to make sure Floridians can keep a roof over their head. One way to do that is to make sure that property insurance rates come down. When I was governor my first term, I held a special session shortly after I was sworn in to try to bring down property insurance rates, which are skyrocketing right now under this governor because he's in the pocket of the insurance companies. I never was. I was Attorney General before that, and I fought them then. I fought utility companies the same way, and for your benefit. And what I did with that special session, we lowered property insurance by 10%. I'll do it again.
Commissioner, would you like to refute?
Yes. Again, I love how Charlie likes to rewrite history. That during a time when we were going through a recession, we saw insurance going through the roof. But what he did was he manipulated the market, put more and more of those policies in citizens, which would have created a catastrophic event if we had been hit by hurricanes during that time. He chose the trial lawyers over the insurance companies. So he made a choice, and the choice wasn't you. And today we're dealing with issues because of policies he put in place when he was governor.
Thank you, Commissioner. My next question will be directed to you.
Okay.
Congressman, the Governor DeSantis took some measurement a little bit later after the company expressed the opposition to the law known as Don't Say Gay law. Most of them thought that that could impact the county of Osceola and Orange in the area of Orlando. What is the solution that you propose for this situation?
Well, the solution is that you get rid of the law. You repeal Don't Say Gay. And one of the companies you're talking about, unbelievably, is Walt Disney World. They dared to voice their opinion, as we're all guaranteed in the United States Constitution in the First Amendment, the right to free speech. And because they dared to do that against Governor DeSantis, he wants to punish them. Well, it's already having an impact in Central Florida. Walt Disney World was going to send about 2,000 jobs from California to Florida. They decided to pause that because this governor is more concerned about the White House, as I said before, than your house. It's amazing. Now, let me talk about Nikki saying I'm rewriting history. I'm not rewriting anything. I'm telling facts. And facts are stubborn things. And she knows it. And this is the real problem, Nikki. We're in a Democratic primary, but both of us want to unseat Governor DeSantis. If we're going to be able to do that, we have to work together and stop tearing down your fellow Democrats and do what's right to win this election in November. I'll pledge to you, if you win the primary, I'll endorse you that night. I hope you will do the same for me now.
Commissioner, your response to the question?
You know, for the last 3.5 years, I've been standing up against Ron DeSantis. I was the first one in 2020 after an atrocious legislative session to call him a dictator, because that's what he is. He's gone after people's rights to vote, rights to protest, going after our local governments, going after our school boards. And now he's going after our business communities. Look what he did right here down in South Florida, going after the cruise line industry, because they dared to take care of you, the passengers. And then when Disney exercised their freedom of speech, he went after them too. Who's next? You? That's why I stand up against this bully every single day. And I have been doing it for 3.5 years. That's what it means to have a fighter in this election and a fighter in this ring. And yes, Charlie and I might agree on some policies, but at the end of the day, it matters who we vote for in this primary, on who can beat Ron DeSantis. If we vote for Charlie, we're going to see Ron DeSantis running for president because he'll get another term. If you vote for me in this primary, you will have a fighter, and we will end Ron DeSantis' career. That is my promise that I give to you, to make sure that we create a business-friendly environment, but take care of the people that are here, the people that work here. And so I would absolutely reverse this decision on Disney, making sure that we actually truly create an economic environment where people can prosper.
Congressman, your reply?
Well, we're talking about winning the election and winning in November. The latest poll has me polling ahead of Nikki by 17 points in the primary. I've raised over $12 million in this campaign.
The only polls that matter are the ones on election day,
I wouldn't
Charlie.
interrupt you. I hope you would extend me the same courtesy. I'm the only candidate in this race that has union support, including the AFL-CIO. I'm very confident in our opportunity to win this election. Confident in the primary, but not complacent. And the same way about taking on Ron DeSantis, I'm polling ahead of him today.
Giselle, thank you for those questions.
Thank you.
We're going to move now to the environment, because I think we can all agree that Florida is ground zero to the effects of climate change. In South Florida, we also often see street flooding on any given day, on any given dry day, for that matter. Also, the Everglades are considered a state treasure, and funding for restoration efforts has actually increased in recent years. What programs or funding can you put in place to protect our state's environment as we look to the future, Commissioner?
You know, we all know that Florida is ground zero for all the issues that are happening in our climate. We know that right now streets are flooding. You know, growing up here in Miami, I experienced and went through Hurricane Andrew. We all thought that was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime storm. But every single year, we're starting to see more and more of these types of storms threatening the coasts of Florida and the United States. As our Commissioner of Agriculture, we have spent the last 3.5 years fighting for our environment, making sure that we are talking about issues that were going to matter. Clean water. We made sure that we came in and did a better balance on the environment and agriculture, making sure that we are pushing forth legislation and initiatives to create sustainable environment. And so as your governor, I'll be able to take it one step further. That's why the Democratic Environmental Caucus endorsed me. Because as commissioner, we put together a 72-page plan never been done before in the state of Florida, outlining exactly what we would do. And when President Biden was elected, we also sent a 30-page plan with 40 different ideas of how to work together to create a more sustainable environment, including more solar here in the state of Florida, making sure that the infrastructure that is coming down here to our state is actually being used to fund activities and different types of programs that are going to be beneficial to the environment of our state. People come here for our beaches, for our clean waters, and we have to do everything possible to make sure it's sustainable for the next generation.
Congressman, what would you do in terms of funding and programs for the environment here in the state?
Absolutely. Well, listen, few issues are as important to Florida than our environment. And I've said this all the time, that our environment and our economy are inextricably linked. Why? Because Florida's beautiful. We're a tourist-driven state. It is the engine that is our economy. It serves people who work in restaurants, people who work in hotels, people who work at Disney World and Universal and come to go to our cruise lines. And so I know it's fundamentally important to each and every one of you. We want a good economy, we want to sustain it, but we have to sustain Florida in order to keep that going. That means we have to address climate change. I'm the only governor in Florida's history to hold a climate change summit right here in South Florida. Did it with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger of California and others. I think it's fundamentally important that we understand we have to be looking forward. If we're going to save Florida, save the climate, we have to be doing that right now. We are the state most susceptible to rising sea levels. I tried when I was governor the first time to buy as much sugar land as I could to restore the natural flow south of the water through the Everglades, through Lake Okeechobee into Florida Bay. That's what we need to do, and that's what I'll reignite when I get back to be governor again. The only reason we couldn't finish it was the Great Recession, so the funds cut back. But instead, I used them to save teachers' jobs. It's having common sense and doing the right thing.
Now, the environment, we know, is the most important thing. But unfortunately, when Charlie was auditioning to be the vice president under John McCain, he stood behind John McCain when John McCain was talking about oil drilling. Charlie was there clapping and agreeing. See, the policies that Charlie gets behind is only for one purpose. It's only to enhance his political career, not the people of our state, and certainly not our environment.
Let's continue, Mr. Congressman. You are a congressman and you're a commissioner of agriculture in our state, and both are at risk, are risking very important positions within the Democratic Party, trying to get the governor. If any of you loses in front of Ron DeSantis, what will be the cost of your failure within your own party?
Well, the cost is not running against him. The failure would be not challenging Ron DeSantis. He is a disaster of a governor. He's the worst governor in modern Florida history, attacking LGBTQ, not caring about affordability for your housing, for your gas, for your groceries, for your utility bills, not caring about people in their daily lives and students in the classroom, banning books from our classrooms, not supporting teachers. We're the third largest state in the country, and our teachers are paid 48th out of the 50 states in America. It is appalling. What he's doing is giving up everything that Floridians care about in order to pursue the White House, because he's thinking about it all day, every day, and that's why he's going after these red meat, unbelievable issues to punish gay people in Florida, to punish African American citizens in our state, to punish women and their right to choose. I want to reverse all of that. That's why I'm running for governor of Florida, because you certainly deserve better.
What will be the impact within your party, the fact that you might lose the election? And you also will stop being a congressman.
Election. I am confident. I'm not overconfident, but I know what Floridians want. And I know they're hurting. And this governor doesn't feel it. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't understand it. All he does is hang around with millionaires and billionaires and collect checks all over the country to run for president of the United States in 2024. I've been your governor before. I fought for you. Give me the opportunity to do it again, and I will never, never let you down.
Commissioner.
You know, I've had an opportunity to have a front row seat to see the policies that Ron DeSantis has been implanting in our state. I've had to sit next to him in cabinet meetings when he has them. Every single time that I've actually gone to speak at a microphone when Ron and I are in the same room, he actually gets this like head jerk reaction to him because I make him nervous. I throw him off. But what I've also watched and I've seen, I couldn't sit back and watch anymore. You know, growing up here down in Miami, my parents did teach me that you have an obligation to stand up against bullies, to stand up for justice. And I'm watching this guy take away our freedoms, take away our democracy. I had no choice but to stand up and to make sure that he was a one-term governor. And as somebody who's been in those trenches and fighting, because look at what his policy initiatives are. He's going after our LGBTQ plus community. He's going after our Black congressional districts. He's going after rights to protest, rights to vote. That is not democracy. That's fascism. And unfortunately, so many of these policy initiatives that he is fighting on today was Charlie's when he was a Republican. That is unacceptable. That is why we have to win. And I understand the gravity of this situation.
Congressman?
Yeah, well, you know, he is anti-democracy. There's no question about it. This governor doesn't want our fellow Floridians to vote. I have a 90-year-old father, an 87-year-old grandmother, and I love them with all my heart. And what's terrible about what DeSantis is doing, he's making it harder for seniors to vote by mail. I like to vote by mail. It's convenient. I'm a Democrat running to protect democracy. He's an autocrat running to become a dictator, and it's not right for Florida.
I would like to piggyback from what Marilla said and the potential loss to the party if either of you lose. Because President Biden's popularity polling numbers are down about 20% since taking office, and former President Trump carried the state in 2020 in part because of the Hispanic voters supporting the Republican ticket. With these factors in place, how do you plan on carrying the Democrats over the top for the first time in nearly 30 years, Commissioner?
You know, in 2018, when I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture, no one thought it was possible. Everybody kept saying, what is a good Jewish girl from Miami doing running for Commissioner of Agriculture, a seat that has never been elected a female into that position, and nor a Democrat in more than 20 years. But we proved them wrong. We crisscrossed the state and we talked to everybody. We made sure that my first TV commercials were in Lee County. We made sure that we flipped Seminole, we flipped Duval. We made sure that we were going to the Panhandle, to Brevard, to Polk, everywhere in our state. That is what is going to take in order for us to win, to make sure that we have a candidate who understands the complete demographics of our state. Look, I'm Commissioner of Agriculture. I've spent the last 3 years going to our rural communities, talking to them, finding those issues that unite us instead of dividing us. And at the end of the day, we know that Ron DeSantis has flown too close to the sun, that he's prone to make mistakes, and I'm prone to capitalize on them. I have won our state as a Democrat, the only one in this race who can claim that. I will do it again in 2022 by being myself, by talking about the issues that are important to you, not the issues that are important to us. That's how we're going to win. We create an umbrella for everybody to come underneath and make sure that we are protecting the interests of the people of our state.
Congressman, it's been nearly 3 decades. Your response to that?
My response is we have to do what's right for the people of our state. And what that means in the Hispanic community is reaching out to them, listening. My dad used to tell me and my 3 sisters, I'm an only son, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Respect his ratio. Make sure you listen to people. Make sure you hear what they're saying. You're running to be the governor of the state of Florida. There's 22 million of us. Visit with Venezuelans, as I have done, Nicaraguans, as I have done, Cuban Americans, as I have done. This is so important because we're the most diverse state in the country. And that's a great part of our beauty. And so I am the grandson of an immigrant who came to this country at the age of 14 in 1912 from the island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean. That's my father's mother, my grandmother. She immigrated from Lebanon about the same year in 1912. I understand the immigrant story. I understand the yearn for freedom, the yearn for commerce, the yearn for opportunity. It's why people have been coming to America forever. It's the right thing to do to protect that, to understand that story, and to make sure it continues to go forward.
Commissioner?
And growing up here in Miami, my back neighbors were Cuban. And we spent almost every other weekend going to Calle Ocho, hearing the stories of why she and her family left the communist regime to come here for that democracy. And when we kicked off our campaign, the Nikki Escucha tour, we toured all over our state, talking to our Latin American community, talking to our Haitian community. That is what it's going to take, listening, understanding the stories, understanding why people came here. I hear you, and I will protect you.
Thank you.
Congresista, ambos
Congressman, you are both have done emphasize and throughout the debate as well that Ron DeSantis, governor, more than his re-election, what he's interested on is to become a presidential candidate.
¿Acaso eso no lo hace
Doesn't that make him, to any of you, of the two of you, more weak to the electorate of the people that are looking for a more solid candidate to bring about the electoral rules?
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it makes him a very weak candidate. He's taken his eye off of you, our fellow Floridians. He doesn't care about you as much as he cares about his own political future, and he's proving it every single day. He doesn't work for common good. He doesn't work across the aisle. He's only going after the hard right, very hard right, Republican vote so that he can do well in the polling for the nomination for president. And it is serving him well politically, but it's not serving you at all as Floridians. It's supposed to be public service, and you're supposed to serve with a servant's heart. Ron DeSantis, make no mistake about it, is a politician who only cares about his own future. You, my fellow Floridians, you deserve better. You deserve somebody who loves Florida, who cares about you, who cares about our environment, who cares about your children, who makes sure that the future of Florida will be very bright. You need and deserve a governor who will bring the sunshine back to the Sunshine State, because under this governor, it's been pretty dark for a while.
Commissioner.
You know, I read a story back in 2019 that did an entire expose on Ron DeSantis. And one of the most fascinating parts of this story was talking about his first baseball game at Yale, where he got a single, and then as he was standing on the base, he tried to steal second. He kept his eye off of where he needed to go because he got picked off at second. That's what he's trying to do again here. He's taken his eye off of his home base. He's taking his eye off of you, the people, in order to have that chance of running for president of the United States. Make no mistake about it. If he was to win this re-election, that is exactly what he would do. He would leave us behind at a time when we're seeing the greatest amount of suffering in our state. He will have left a wake of damage everywhere he goes. He is not here focusing on the state. During the pandemic, he went MIA. I had to stand up and take over leadership of our state because he didn't want to talk to you, didn't want to follow the science and the data. He was already looking at his national aspirations, was more concerned about getting on Fox News than making sure that we are protecting the people of our state. We made sure that we led with science, led with convictions, gave you all the information that you needed to protect your families. And that is what I will do as your next governor.
Congressman, you have the opportunity of 30 seconds.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, listen, we have to have a governor who cares about Florida again, who understands what a special place this is. Florida is not a stepping stone. We are a special place, the most beautiful place in the world to live. Listen, I was born in Pennsylvania, but when I was 3 years old, my family moved to St. Petersburg on the West Coast. I'm a public school kid who graduated from St. Petersburg High School and one of our great state universities, Florida State University. I love this state.
This debate is airing in not only English, but also in Spanish. So let's talk about immigration, because Governor DeSantis has clearly stated that Florida will not be a sanctuary state for undocumented immigrants and has taken measures to protect our state from what he calls the crisis at the border. Would you change that policy if you were elected governor, Commissioner?
You know, as a Commissioner of Agriculture, we know that 2 million of our Floridians work for agriculture, and 1 million of those are undocumented. So the last 3.5 years, I've made sure that we have protected those that are working in the immigration, that are working here in agriculture. You know, when Ron made sure that testing and vaccines didn't get to those populations, I had to go around him to stand up for the people that live and the people that work here. They are essential to our economy. And I've actually had to testify in front of Congress and on numerous panels all across our state, saying that we need comprehensive immigration reform. And when this legislature pushed, now not once, but twice, to create sanctuary cities, I stood up and said, these are individuals that are working here in our state. And the governor had the audacity to sign a piece of legislation, to push legislation that took away some of our religious institutions who have become safe harbors for our children. These were our kids that he went after. I will vow to do whatever I can to make sure that the people who are living here in our state feel safe, feel secure. You know, I also had the opportunity to speak to a lot of the individuals out in Pahokee who have heard the stories of every time they leave their house, they're a fear of never coming home. No one should have to be able to ever live in that fear.
Congressman, would you change the policy?
What I think we need to do is have comprehensive immigration reform. I just told you a few minutes ago that I'm the grandson of a Greek immigrant and a Lebanese grandmother. I understand the immigrant story and I understand the dream that immigrants have. They want to come to this country for a better life, for a safer life, for a more secure life for them and their children and their grandson. That's why I think it's so important that we get this right. Our borders need to be secure, but we also need to be compassionate. Otherwise, my grandmother and my grandfather wouldn't have been able to come to the United States. So my grandfather, Adam Christodoulos, when he got here, shortly thereafter, he joined the army for World War I. He fought in Europe, in Belgium. He was honorably discharged. And guess what? As a result, he was granted his U.S. citizenship. Couldn't have been happier about anything in his life. And that was because he was one of the first dreamers, if you will. That's what America stands for. America stands for the beacon of light and hope around the world. Doing what we can to make sure that as the strongest country on the planet, we are fighting for right and fighting for good.
Would Florida be a sanctuary state if you were to be governor of Florida?
Florida would be a place where people can continue to come and work in agriculture. As I said, I stated, I think we need to have comprehensive immigration reform. I don't want illegal immigration. I want legal immigration that is compassionate and caring.
Commissioner.
Let's also go back to why Ron DeSantis sent our troops over to the border last year. It had absolutely nothing to do with securing our border. It had everything to do with a political stunt. And you know who it cost? You and me, taxpayers' dollars. Over $1 million was spent in order for that political shot that Ron DeSantis had. That is what he is doing. He is playing politics with our money, with our lives. That has to stop.
Thanks to both of you. The debate has finalized. Each of you will have 2 minutes for your final argument.
Commissioner Freed, we begin with you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for moderating today, and thank you for Telemundo and NBC6. I was growing up here in Miami. My mom was a teacher. My dad, he's a Republican. That's why being up here debating a Republican is nothing new to me. But the things I taught me in my Jewish faith is what we call tikkun olam, to heal the world. It's why I shunned private practice to become a public defender fighting for the innocent. It's why I took on the big banks during the foreclosure crisis to help our homeowners. It's why I fought for our foster care kids. And it's why I was so hard on Charlie today. Because appointing and defending judges who stripped away 2 black congressional seats, who plot to overturn Roe v. Wade, and taking money from the NRA is the exact opposite of healing the world. Look, we both want to beat Ron DeSantis, but I have been doing it for 4 years as your only statewide elected Democrat. So you have a choice. We can keep losing, or we can try something new. Something new for that single mom who can't afford her rent. Something new for that black entrepreneur who is competing in a rigged system. Something new for our teachers who just want to teach. Something new for every little girl who has fled tyranny. So, we have to try something new. I'm Nikki Fried. I am the only statewide elected Democrat, only one to have won our state since Barack Obama in 2012. I know how to beat Ron DeSantis, and if you give me that opportunity, I will do just that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your vote. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much for tuning in this evening. It's a pleasure to be with you. Sadly, I have to say, you just heard the voice of desperation. Unfortunately for Nikki, she's losing this campaign, and that's unfortunate. But you want somebody to win, and who can win in November. I will be laser focused on affordability, making sure that we get housing down, that we get the affordability back, that we do what we can do to get gas prices down and not put it off as a political stunt, as Governor DeSantis has done. You deserve a governor who cares about you and your education, supports public school teachers, make sure that even though we're the third largest state in the country, we're not 48th or 49th in what we pay our teachers. They deserve better. You deserve better. We need to make sure, in fact, that all of these things are fought for. And let me start with Roe versus Wade. This is one of the greatest threats to our modern society in over 50 years, and it comes out of disrespect for women. DeSantis does not respect women, doesn't want them to have their right to choose about their body, about their health. That's absurd. I will fight for it tooth and nail every single day. I look forward to the opportunity to fight for you, to make Florida a better place to live again. As I said, to bring the sunshine back to the Sunshine State, because this is a wonderful place to grow up. I did it since 1960 in Tampa Bay. I look forward to the campaign ahead. I ask for your vote humbly. I hope you will stand with me. Go to charliechrist.com and help us out. God bless you all, and God bless our beautiful Florida.
Congressman Crist and Commissioner Fried, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Decision 2022. This concludes the Democratic primary gubernatorial debate. We bring it to a close, and we would like to thank you once again, our NBC6 and Telemundo Florida station viewers.
This is the result of the effort of this electoral year. In that way, the candidates will participate the next November 8th. The change is
And once again,
there.
we thank Commissioner Nikki Fried and Florida Congressman Charlie Crist for your participation in this debate.
Gracias. Buenas noches.
Good night.
Congratulations. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.